Tell us a little bit about how you see this very challenging world from your point of view, and particularly more broadly for sub-Saharan Africa, other countries in your region, though of course they're all very different. One of the big concerns, which I've already mentioned, and Kristalina has also mentioned, is debt burdens, and fiscal management. And we understand that in many countries in the continent and even elsewhere, the cost of debt interest has obviously risen, the fiscal cost of debt has risen, and it is squeezing out absolutely essential social services, education, and so forth, and that gives tragic choices to politics. Could you describe how you see that situation? And later on, we'll talk about some of the solutions, global and domestic. How do you see that?
Thank you. It's a huge challenge because at the same time, we need to make sure that we keep our debt sustainable, our macro environment right, but the citizens are there waiting for answers. Kristalina mentioned they are starving, young population waiting for jobs, and a lot of political and social pressure. I think a good start is to make the right choices and picking the projects that will have as much economic and social impact as possible. Because with so a tight fiscal space and with limited liquidity available, we need to be very wise making choices. On top of that, we need to build internal capacity in terms of know-how, in terms of strong institutions, and in terms of tackling informality and broaden the tax base. So we need to be doing our homework just to make sure that we compensate that external challenging environment with some strength internally. For that to happen, we need to do a very real and transparent diagnosis and with technical assistance with coming from all over the world, manage to fix the situation that need to be fixed. I'm talking about, for example, regulatory framework to make possible to private sector to get in electricity and water. In some cases, it's possible with a PPP, with taking advantage of structures like MIGA, like ATIDI, establish a partnership with the private sector with a warranty to mitigate the risks. I'm talking about the fiscal environment and looking at the region of countries that are less developed and how we can leverage fiscal benefits, but considering at the same time making sure that the economy is as digital as possible and the public administration is efficient to make sure that everybody is paying in taxes. We are talking about the efficiency of the utilities to make sure that they are not adding additional stress because the treasury do not need to keep putting money to them to stay alive. So we need to keep implementing reforms that can attract the private sector to compensate that inflows that are not so big. On the debt side, we need to look to the external debt and the internal debt. First of all, making sure that the portfolio that we already have, we can manage it in a way that is costly. Proactive debt management, liability operations, internally and externally to reduce the costs and strengthen the line. And after that, the new debt needs to come at a reasonable cost. So managing all these always begin with good choices.
Just one very quick follow-up, very interesting. One of the points that the WEO made, which I thought was very interesting, that there was very substantial scarring, as they put it, in particularly in developing countries as a result of the pandemic and subsequent shocks. How far do you see that, the scarring from the past, as a central element in the challenges you now confront?
Yes, we need to keep working and building trust and leverage all the positive movement that came from that moment. During that period, we managed to close bilateral agreement with some creditors. We had the DSSI, and we also we started building a strong health system. So it was a difficult moment, but it came with opportunities. And we need to leverage on those opportunities, on the partnerships that we've established, on the breathing space that came from that, to continue the path of strengthening our health system, of renewing some agreements that we set the path to establish since that time in terms of debt relief and reduce of the debt burden. So I think it's possible to continue to take advantage of this.
One of the issues I don't want to get away for the moment from the woes of Europe and monetary and fiscal policy. We'll come back to this. But I'm very interested. Your country is a significant oil exporter. And a very large part of the agenda people are talking about, admittedly they talk much more than they do anything about it, is climate. And that obviously creates some rather large challenges from your point of view. How do you see the role of countries like yours in the process of discussing this and delivering a climate management program for the world?
Yeah, our strategy is based on focusing first on the power generation, electricity. So we are moving with an agenda where we are progressively increasing our clean sources of energy. Hydro, solar, we are now in the position of producing more than we need. And the next step is to take advantage of it, to interconnect with the parts of the country that do not have access to that electricity, and right after that export to the neighboring country. That's why in my first intervention, I mentioned how much important it was for us to move with a reform of open the transmission line for the private. So energy, we understand it's a good start. So we managed to decrease around 40% the use of, how I can say in English, the energy coming from burning diesel. We managed to reduce it. We will finish in 2027 our third dam, Kakulu Kabasa. We have huge solar plants being put in place. So a strong investment that we are doing, and we believe that in 2027, we will have more than 60, near to 70% of our electricity coming from clean sources of energy, hydro and solar mainly. After that, because we will continue, and we are moving in parallel, because we understand that we will continue having the oil companies there. What we are challenging them, and they are responding, is for them to have a strategy for them to continue working when the oil finished, because that moment will come. So they already started looking at gas, biofuel, and we have some deals being signed on that perspective. So that's our strategy, and we will continue calibrating it along the way.
That sounds very impressive and very significant and far-sighted more so than most as far as I can see. So congratulations.
Thank you.